welcome to Focus on B, the video series where I spent about 20 or so minutes playing a game that I've got some thoughts on, and I'm going to be talking about it. This is Revolt. Oh boy. Not the Revolt that I'm familiar with, however. This is a game that, well, it's an interesting story because it's the kind of game that, like, literally every single person ever has played growing up, and everyone loves it, and everyone loved it when it came out, and everyone still loves it, and yet somehow it only got, like, one sequel on the PS1, and then a remake on the PS2, and then nothing. And it was, like, ported to mobile, whatever. This is actually the PlayStation 1 version, as you can tell by the everything. So, you know what's really interesting? That if you were a PlayStation user around this time, as far as you were concerned, this was, well, actually, RC Revenge Pro would have been the better game. Now, I know anyone who thinks that, in general, is crazy, right? That game is not better than Revolt, but it is a better PS1 game than Revolt is for PS1. Why am I playing the PS1 version? Well, actually, I'm playing all of them. Well, all of the all the console versions, just to compare. You know, it's because it's really interesting seeing these different versions of this game that have their own qualities. And, well, to be fair, when I get to the Dreamcast version, I'm just going to be playing the PC version, basically, except in 4x3 and in the 30 FPS, because that's just how it runs. But you know what? I'm actually really, really happy that, like, we had this era, at least for 1.5, like, generations of things being so different. Because nowadays, like, everything's like, oh, it's the same game, it's the same settings, but different graphic settings. It doesn't really matter that much, and it's cool that's the case, because that means that essentially it's a level playing field to an extent, at least. But still. But I think I realized what made this game so enjoyable. I think playing this version of the game really puts the driving into perspective. Because that's the thing, what makes this game good is the actual handling and physics of the cars. Because you can clearly tell the cars don't handle like how they do on, even on N64. I mean, the N64 version is pretty solid. We're going to see it in a few minutes. But the PC version, and just in general, this game is known for how the cars have these really accurate collisions. And here, I wouldn't say the physics are like that much worse, but they're noticeably just not quite as... They're not down to that atomic level, if that makes sense. There's just this lack of detail, if that makes sense. You know? It's just boring. Really, the cars don't have any life to them. And not to mention the AI is ridiculously easy. Like, the opponents are just so dumb. Like, look at how far ahead I am. That happens in the other versions too, but it's a little less consistent. Like, it feels more like incidental or just me being really good at the game. Here, it's every single race. And I get that, and I'm playing on the highest difficulty. I'm playing this on the simulation setting, like the highest possible challenge setting in the game, and as you can see, it's still just ridiculously easy, and it doesn't really get that much harder, and the game is so fucking slow. And I get it that, like, okay, they can't really render the environments that quickly, but there's PS1 games that run way faster. This was clearly not the priority version. But what's interesting is that the same people who made this also made Forsaken on PS1, which runs super smooth, and maybe even some people would consider it better than the N64 version. I like the N64 version better, but it is a very good version of the game. I just have problems with it personally. How do you use the items? Hey, at least it keeps the music. I still have no fucking idea what that sound that plays when you get the battery is supposed to be, but it's just pure, concentrated childhood sound. It's just the sound of my life, you know what I mean? I love it so much. Every single thing about this game, but unfortunately, playing this right now feels like an imposter. It's like, this is not the Revolt. It doesn't even, look, my car doesn't even have a fucking wing. God, okay, enough of this. So I'm gonna see you guys now with the N64 version. Hot damn, everything's just got a whole lot more texture filter. This is the N64 version of Revolt, and right off the bat, oh my god, it runs so much better. You're not going to see it, but this runs at 60 FPS. It's fucking insane. Interestingly enough, though, from every bit of footage I've seen of this game on the internet, I was under the impression it ran like shit. And I was thinking, like, okay, well, again, maybe Project 64 is doing some trickery, but no. Like, games that run like ass on this as well. And I'm not talking about like emulation issues, like with Top Gear Rally, for example. That game has some problems. That's not going to stop me. I'm still going to do a video on it, by the way. I'm just going to have to edit the music back in because the music just sounds totally crackled and shit. But no. There are games that you can tell it's running the way it's supposed to. It just runs like shit. But this runs fucking beautifully. Holy shit. And also, the physics are so much closer to how they're supposed to be. Let me check the audio settings real quick, by the way. Crank that shit. What are you, crazy? This is Revolt, and it has a different soundtrack. Actually, this soundtrack is not the same as it's not the same as it would have been on PC in the other versions. Like, yes, it's still similar, of course, and I'm pretty sure it was done by the same people, but the compositions are different, which is interesting to me because they didn't have to do that. They could have just done what they did with Forsaken, for example, on N64. The soundtrack is almost identical to how it is on PC, which is very impressive because of the different format, but it is electronic music, and that kind of music is basically made with MIDI to begin with. It's made all, in DAWs and stuff. There's no real instruments, or even if there are, they're like sampled, right? So it makes sense it would translate quite well. In fact, I actually prefer the N64 version of one particular track from Forsaken, the one with all the arpeggios and the doo-doo-doo, that melody. So much better in the N64 version. They really fucked up with the guitar tone on that. But anyway, but besides the point, yeah, here we have a different soundtrack, and it's just, it plays so much better. But they fucked up the piano. The nostalgic, absolute childhood dreams bliss piano. They messed it up. But that's okay, I can forgive that. The visuals are obviously much better. You got this really nice lighting going on. It plays so smooth. And, if you were, like, really strictly only into consoles and just for whatever fucking reason never wanted to play the PC version, but you wanted something that was closer to the PC version in terms of the vision, I guess, I would actually say that this one is closer. The Dreamcast version is technically the closest, but it does have a different HUD, which really changes the feel, Like the font and the icons and stuff, everything's a little different. Here, it's pretty much the same. It's just a slightly different resolution, of course. And even though I've never really tinkered too much with Project 64's texture replacements, to be honest. But anyway, with this one, we're gonna do 2 races because, well, they go by much faster because the driving is fast. It's just, it's so much better. Really, it's incredible. And it's not just the better performance and the better graphics. No, in fact, the texture resolution actually isn't quite as crisp, and obviously the sound is different, but it's just the fluidity of the gameplay and the way the cars respond to your inputs, and the physics, the way the cars handle. It has that excitement. I wouldn't say it's spot on to the PC version, also no loading times, of course. I wouldn't say it's spot on to the PC version, but it has a lot more life to it. Look at how, for example, my car just got wedged there. And yeah, unfortunately, we are doing the same track. I did not take that into account when I was selecting the cup, but that's okay because it's still it's mirrored for one, and also it's just, it's a different version of the game. You can really tell how different it looks, but there is something actually slightly more appealing about the N64 visuals. I don't know, I've always kind of liked the N64 look to an extent. I mean, I like both, but the thing about the PlayStation 1 is it kind of just feels like a lesser version of what we ended up getting later, because it kind of already set the standard for CD-based systems and stuff, whereas the N64 was like, it was just unique and different, right? So it kind of holds its own in a strange way. I mean, there's plenty of PS1 games that still hold up, not this one on PS1, no. In fact, again, as I said, I think RC Revenge Pro is okay as a PS1 game. It's much better than Revolt is on PS1, for sure. But this is, it's so much better than that. It's just because of the physics, the excitement, the way the cars handle. As for the weapons, I don't know. I've never really... Some people consider this a combat racer, but it really isn't in my books. The weapons are such small potatoes. They don't do much. I mean, yeah, they can help out, for sure. The fogging is very noticeable, yeah, but they can help. And it's always fun, when you get, like, the pickup and it's like, oh, cool, I can drop a ball on the floor. Dunk, and you can tell it's like a 2D sprite. I wonder if it's a 2D sprite no, I think on PC it's actually a proper model, and therefore on Dreamcast. I don't know what the hell he did to the freaking effects when you have some kind of electrical power like that, but it looks really ugly. Look at the it doesn't have that same distortion effect, does it, when I shoot this? Yeah, it doesn't. That's really unfortunate, but I'm guessing it just would have been impossible. I don't think I've ever seen any N64 game have like a ripple world distortion effect, so there's a chance that they just might not have been able to recreate it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a matter of how the game presents itself, and also, you know, I think the fact that there's no loading times really helps in general. I think that makes pretty much every N64 version of a game much smoother to play, and to be fair, I think the PS1 didn't suffer from loading issues as much as other disc-based systems at the time. Didn't the 3DO have really bad loading times, or was it the CDI? I don't fucking know. So there's always like these, you know how consoles kind of have like a tier list in a way? Well, not so much anymore, because nowadays there's only two kinds of game systems outside of PC. They are the big players, you know, so Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, and then you have like either the homebrew stuff or just the little guys like Evercade. But then you have stuff like the Retron 5, or because there's plenty of like more niche game systems that are basically just either emulators essentially, or very, very specified, right, or arcade machines or whatever, those kind of things. Whereas back then you had the major players and then the what the fuck, you know, some of which were good, some of which weren't. So you got stuff like the TurboGrafx 16, the Neo Geo, MVS, I think it was. And the Neo Geo was technically like an arcade machine, but also has like a console version. And, you know, that's actually totally fine. And then you have stuff like the fucking Jaguar, which, weirdly enough, has like a couple okay games on it. And it has a pretty decent version of Doom. And it's also cartridge-based, and so has super fast loading times. And for its time was pretty impressive, come to think of it, you know? It doesn't quite compare to the N64. I'm pretty sure if you're trying to porting this game to the Jaguar, it would die. But still. And then there was also the 3DO, which was also very impressive. It was really expensive, though, and no one fucking bought it because of that. But although it did have the Need for Speed, and that made me pretty happy, except I've never owned a 3DO ever. Wasn't the 3DO the one that had plumbers don't wear ties on it? I see how they were trying to market that thing. No, okay. I wonder, did that game actually receive any marketing like push at all? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. That's the end of this race, and then we're going to move on to the Dreamcast version, where things are going to change quite a bit. Now we've finally reached the beautiful Dreamcast version. Oh my god, this thing is so good looking. It's literally the PC version. Like it's not, oh, it's like the PC version, but with a couple compromises. It's the PC version. Look at it. Nothing has been compromised. Like, the textures look insane, the game sounds great. It only runs at 30 FPS, that's true. And again, as you can see, the HUD is different. There's a different style to everything. It's not quite as colorful. It's a little more, takes itself a little more seriously, a little more metallic and stuff like that. And also something to note is the difficulty. Now on this track, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a pretty easy time because for some reason the bots are just really stupid here. But when you play most of the tracks in this game on this version, yeah, they're fucking hard. I mean, I'm playing on simulation mode because of course I am. And actually, wait, come to think of it, I'm not sure if I am. I mean, I must be, judging by that, but because you don't actually pick the mode when you start a championship, you pick the mode in the options menu. You actually have to go in and go from arcade to simulation, so I'm not sure if the game... No, I'm sure the game would have saved that, because it does save your progress, obviously. It auto-saves, of all things, yeah. The Dreamcast was one of the first systems to do, like, true auto-saving, if that makes sense, where it's like, it doesn't ask you, because a lot of game systems before that will ask you, right? Actually, no, I think the NES had auto-saving, didn't it? Like, Zelda? I'm not sure, but basically it was very common for games to kind of like, are you sure? You know, do you want to overwrite? Whatever. Just like, fuck it. No, just do it. I mean, plenty of other Dreamcast games do ask you, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Point is, this version of the game is absolutely gorgeous, and as you can see, it's definitely more challenging. Part of that is because of the physics being completely accurate to the PC version, therefore being harder. And another part of it is because the AI generally does a little bit better, but as you can see, yeah, it's not the sharpest tool in the shed, because I'm great. Oh, actually, no, he might end up overtaking me. Is he Zipper? Where the fuck is he? I don't know. Oh, it's just so weird, like, seeing basically the PC version of the game, but just not being the PC version, because it's just so good. It's so crisp, so clear. You know, I mean, okay, the resolution is because I'm upscaling this, of course, but, or I guess up-resing is the correct term. I'm not scaling it, I'm increasing the internal resolution. And you know, there's a part of me that almost feels as if the texture is a little bit sharper here. I mean, of course, on PC, you can just mod the textures. And when I say mod, I mean, like, literally the files are just out in the open. There's no, like, encryption or anything. Like, you don't have to dig into the files. They are just PNGs. You just open them and change them. And even the sounds. Like, a while ago, when I discovered that, I made myself a little conversion where I made the game look like Need for Speed Most Wanted, with, like, Most Wanted sounds, Most Wanted music, and, like, I changed the color palette to make it all piss, you know, it's just like, yeah, you could do that. You know, there was supposed to be I'm pretty sure most of you guys already noticed, it's pretty common knowledge, but this game was supposed to have a Xbox Live version called Revolt Live, go figure, right? That never happened, of course, and it really is sad what happened to this brand, at least from a commercial standpoint. Of course, the community is keeping the series alive, and it's absolutely incredible, but it's unfortunate that, like, officially speaking, things got a little bit strange. I'm not really sure exactly what's up with that. But still, it's just like, oh, it's so fucking fun. I'm remembering why I like this game so much, and it's really scary, like, when you go back to a game you used to love, and then start to think, oh, fuck, was this game actually shit, and I was just a dumb kid? Sometimes that's true, but no, this game is actually awesome. It's just you gotta play the right version, you know, the one that's, I don't know, you think there are people out there who grew up with the PlayStation version and consider that to be the best? I'm sure, but I don't know, this is clearly the better version, and it's interesting because it's not as if the concept of a game that was also on PC being identical on PS1 was a foreign concept, because Tank Racer exists. That game is the exact fucking same, or Shadow Masters as well. It's a really cool first-person shooter. I was thinking of doing a playthrough of it, but that never happened, and I'm not going to do it. But, it's not as if, because those games are identical to how they are on PC on PS1, so it's not as if it can't happen, but, I don't know. Maybe they just felt that there was probably some development complications or something, I'm not sure, because you'd think they would have wanted to support the most successful of the free systems. Despite being the weakest, the PS1 destroyed both the N64 and the Dreamcast, so, and the Saturn, and the free, and everything else. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it sold more units the first year of the PS2 versus it actually, no, I think it did. No. That wouldn't make sense because most people would have had a PS1. To be fair, though, the year 2000 was when they actually put out the PSX, which is the tiny PlayStation, right? So I imagine that maybe quite a few people bought that as well. It doesn't. What you think Sony gives a shit? It's still their system. It's still their profits. So it's like, fuck it. I don't care if they buy this thing over the other thing. It's like, as long as they buy a thing, that's fine by me, dude. Let's do one more race and we'll call it a day, because this game is just way too much fun and I could do this shit all day. Oh fuck, it's the Wild West track. This one is a real cunt, okay? There's just a little bit of transparency on the text I just realized. But anyway, yeah, it's really tough, because not only do you have this weird traction on the ground, okay, it's not quite as severe as I remember it being, but the terrain is so rough. You know, but the lighting just looks so beautiful as well. You know what I really love? You can kind of tell when certain maps in this game were developed a little earlier or later in development. I swear to God, because the museum level, actually, which we're not going to see here, but the museum level looks noticeably more polished than all the others. Maybe it's just those particular textures and lighting that they used, but it just looks a generation ahead of the rest. I mean, these still look good. Like, the game is overall very good looking, and, like, you know, you really can't complain about that, but it's like, on the museum levels, holy shit, especially Museum 1, yeah, the game did this weird thing where most of the tracks that you play first are the second incarnation. I don't know why, but like, yeah, you would start with Supermarket 2. I don't know what's up with that. Like, maybe the game was supposed to start with longer stages, then they chopped them up, and then they... I'm trying to rationalize it in my head from a development standpoint, but I just can't seem to figure it out. Also, for some reason, the Botanical Garden track, which is like one of my favorites, it only has one version. Maybe it was initially supposed to have two as well, but then they had to cut it. I don't know. That's kind of weird. I mean, it's always fun, though, when games that will typically have, like, a pair of something end up having, like, the one unique track or unique level or whatever it might be. Either due to time constraints or just not, or maybe because it was, like, an intentional decision. I'm not sure. But it really does make me curious as to why that naming convention ended up happening. Why the longer of the two tracks was the first one. I have no idea. I'm trying to, like, figure it out right now as I'm talking in real time, and I'm trying to find the answer along the way, and it's just not coming to me. Like, really, why? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm just going to keep pondering this for the rest of the fucking episode, so I can pretty much said everything I want to say. This game is just so sick, and this is, like, even though, funnily enough, though, this is, like, the best version on the consoles, that is. But the N64 version has an appeal to it as well. It plays super well. It plays super smoothly as well. But, you know, I mean, this one's better just because of the way the cars handle. Just because of the difficulty. The N64 version is so fucking easy. I beat that whole thing, like, every single cup in, like, I don't even know, like, an hour. Okay, no, it probably took a little longer than that, but I didn't have to restart once. In fact, the only reason why I actually used cheats to unlock everything for this video in particular is because right as I got to the end, the second race of the final cup, it crashed. It fucking crashed. I swear to God, like, it froze. And I hadn't saved anything, so, that was a bit of an issue. But anyway, back to the whole naming convention thing. What the hell could possibly be the problem? Like, really, why did that happen? So it's like, okay, so they made, let's say they made just all the assets, and we're like, okay, let's make some levels. So they made it for, oh, I know, maybe they wanted the game to have, like, challenge stages or something? You know how, like, for example, Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations as well will have, you know, the main big level, and then they'll take bits and pieces of that level, chop it up, and make, like, these challenge levels, right? Even Forces did that, I think, and Colors to an extent. Except those were considered main stages, but still, maybe that's what they were gonna do. They were gonna have, like, the main stage, and then chop it up and make, like, challenge sections, but then that never happened. They were like, okay, fuck, we can't develop this idea, we don't have time. So instead, let's just make these smaller versions into tracks as well, and put them at the start of the game because they're easier. What about the names? Well, we don't have time to go back into the files and change the scene names, change the way that the game addresses them. Just fucking leave them, no one's gonna care. Yeah, I guess you're right. Because, like, the thing is, Toys in the Hood, though, is, I'm pretty sure is called just Toys in the Hood 1, and then it goes Toys in the Hood 2. So I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, you know what I always found really bizarre? Whenever I would watch multiplayer footage of this game, and you know how, like, when you get electrocuted, you have, like, that blue effect? Or when you use the speed power-up? Well, there's a green effect for when, like, you're it or something like that. I'm not sure, like, it's like tag? Anyway, whatever, that was, oh god, that was Revolt. All free console versions. Clearly, this is the best one, but you know, the N64 version is pretty cool too. And the PS1 version, it definitely puts RC Revenge Pro into perspective. But anyway, this has been Focus on B, the video series where I spent about 20 or so minutes, maybe a little bit more in this case, playing and talking about this game that I absolutely adore, or other games that I've got some thoughts on and impressions of. This was Revolt 1999, as you just saw, basically everything.